Good morning, here we go, presentation time. If you somehow slept and missed stuff that was posted earlier or didn't watch it, here's a quick recap. You're going to be answering these 3 things on this document posted below at the bottom of this assignment, just above the video. Also, this isn't an invitation to do this all at the last minute. Yes, it says it's due Tuesday by 6 p.m. That is for the finished product of what we're doing here, which is a 3-2-1. You're going to reflect on our presentations. 3 things you learned from the presentation, 2 things you found interesting, and a question you still have. Don't make your question a yes no, like, did people like it? Yes or no? No, thank you. We're good. We're not in kindergarten. Even though the due date, like I just said, is Tuesday at 6 p.m., don't put this off to Tuesday, because that is going to be a lot of work to do on Tuesday. So instead, as we get our first video today, watch our first 5 presentations and then move on. Answer these questions and then you're done. It shouldn't take more than 20 to 25 minutes, as I said earlier. So let's get to it. Our very first speaker, if you will, is going to be Luca, who covered fashion. He covered fashion. So let me get Luca ready. I'm gonna mute myself, and then that way you can just listen to Luca. Here we go.
Fashion and styles by me. What women wore in the early 20s. What women wore in the early 20s was very long sleeve dresses that pretty much covered up their whole body. The dresses were very tight and very uncomfortable to wear. And pretty much to top everything off, they'd wear the very big feathered hat that they would wear all the time, and very nice dressed high heels. What men wore in the early 20s. The outfit men wore in the very 20s was very professional in today's present day. What men wore in the early 20s was a button-down shirt with a little vest. That would go with it. Then there would be a professional jacket that they'd wear with either a bow tie or a tie. Then men would wear a very nice fedora or very nice dress suits to top off the outfit. What women wore in the mid-late 20s. As the 20s came to a close, women started to show a little bit more skin with their outfit. They would wear loose dresses that didn't cover as much skin as it did in the early 20s. The dress would contain a touch of leather around the dress that would match the color of the dress that the women would choose. Then the women would cut their hair shorter, which made the outfit more appealing to men, which was a very big trend in the mid-late 20s. Men were in the late 20s. What women would wear in the mid-late 20s was pretty much the same as it did in the early 20s. They stuck with their suits, but the only change that they pretty much made was they would not use the fedora as much. They would start to grease or gel their hair to be more outgoing to women. And then they would start to wear less dress shoes for their outfit. And some pictures. And my citations. Thank you.
All right, that was Luca. Here's a good point to pause your video. Go ahead and answer your 3-2-1 questions. Don't forget, if you need to kind of go back, you can always go back and rewatch. If you answered as you're watching, great. You can kind of keep moving, and we'll keep watching. Otherwise, hit pause here, finish what you need to finish, and then continue.
Presentation on the 1920s movies and Hollywood. The beginning. An invention that produced big changes in American life was the motion picture. American inventor Thomas Edison began making short motion pictures at the end of the century. In 1903, a movie called The Great Train Robbery was the first complete story. People had more time to spend on leisure, and Americans fell in love with the movies. The movies were a cheap form of entertainment, and Hollywood in the 1920s was a booming industry. Most U.S. film production at the start of the decade occurred in or near Hollywood on the West Coast, although some films were still being made in New Jersey and in the Long Islands. The beginning, part 2. By the early 1920s, many American towns had a movie theater. Most Americans went to see the movies at least once a week. The movie industry became a big business. People not know the names of government officials, but they knew the names of every leading actor and actress. The movies were fun. They provided a change from day-to-day troubles of life. They also were an important social force. The black and white silence movies progressed to color productions in 1920s, and in 1927, the first talking picture was made. Impact on others. Live entertainment became movie palaces where eager people could see exactly the same entertainment as their fellows in Los Angeles. The belief that films could influence behavior was seen by some as an opportunity to get their message across to a mass audience. Others feared that the next generation of children would be warped by the immorality of gangster flicks and violence. During this time, young Americans tried to copy what they saw in the movies. They dreamed about far away places and a different kind of life. Everyone saw the same movies, even the rich and the poor, and their kids had the same dream. This became the modern American dream. Big business. When the industrial rapidly grew, these functions became integrated under one directorship to maximum profits, called vertical integration. There were 8 major and minor studios that dominated the industry. They were the ones that had most successfully consolidated and integrated all aspects of film's development. By 1929, the filmmaking films that were to rule and monopolize Hollywood for the next half a century. They produced more than 90% of the fiction films in America and distributed their films in both nationally and internationally. Prices. One of the things people loved about the movies is that they were so cheap. Movies gave out tickets for like 27 cents, and food and drinks were $1. These helped people's communities, because when the movies started to become popular, they were in the Great Depression, and this gathered everyone to forget their lives and have a good time. When people started to go to more movies, the theater decided to boost the price every year because their amount of people were doubling, including internationally. Timeline. In 1921, the rise of Rudolph Valentino as a star. His appearance in The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. The public could not get enough of him. He appeared in The Conquering Power and then a major role in The Sheik, which increased his popularity even further. In 1922, Walt Disney released the cartoon Four Magicians of Brooklyn. First 3D movies viewing required spectaculars with one red and one green lens. Hollywood became the center of filmmaking in the U.S. with 85% of movie production. In 1923, much acclaim was bestowed on the German film Signified for the quality of its photography. Former beauty contestant winner Claire Bow appeared in Down to the Sea in Ships. Timeline Part 2. Harry Cohn, along with his brother Jack and Joe Bryant, found Columbia Pictures. In 1925, Alfred Hitchcock made his directing debut at the age of 26 with The Pleasure Garden. Actors and actresses who were starting out and yet to become famous included Clark Gable, Joan Crawford, Gary Cooper and Carole Lombard. I think that is. I might be wrong. In 1926, over 400 feature films were made at the cost of $120 million, and there were over 14,600 movie theaters in the U.S., costing over $4 million to make Ben-Hur. That was the hit of the year. These are just like facts of like each year in timeline. Timeline 3. In 1927, the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences was formed in Hollywood by the leading directors, producers, writers, and actors. In 1928, Walt Disney produced an animated cartoon films, Plane Crazy and The Steamboat Willie, starring Mickey Mouse. In 1929, the first British talking picture is released, Blackmail, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. Summary. During the 1920s, there were a lot of laziness and sadness after the war, but when the movies came out, everyone saw a thing that could be great and fun in various ways. The timeline of movies is very legendary, with so much progress of studios and actors that made it big, that makes us laugh. The motion pictures was an invention that started it all of this, and today, without movies, everyone would just be bored, because doesn't everyone love entertainment? When they opened theaters, there were different kinds with different prices, and sometimes they did movies outside. All these great ideas made movies one of the best ideas after the war, that became one of the best production in 1920s. Thank you, Mr. Lang. Have a great day.
All right, again, just a reminder, if you need to pause, if you need to finish, go ahead and pause. Otherwise, we're moving on.
My topic was 1920s jazz music, and I'm also pretty sure that's Louis Armstrong. What led up to jazz? As economic, political, and technological developments advanced in the United States, new forms of entertainment were introduced. This became known as the Roaring Twenties. Jazz music was instituted at this time. Many jazz musicians were part of the Lost Generation. The Lost Generation was a group of writers, artists, and musicians that came of age during World War I in the Roaring Twenties. What is jazz? It developed in New Orleans. It was consisted of a mix of spirituals, European harmonies, and West African rhythms. African Americans brought this when moving north during the Great Migration. Young Americans loved jazz, while older Americans hated it. They thought it was like reckless. Dances were made to go along with jazz, and dancing quickly jumped into popularity. A rise of popularity in jazz. Jazz gained popularity thanks to jazz bands playing their music in speakeasies, country clubs, dance halls, and radios. This could be a problem for African Americans to do because of segregation. Black and tan clubs were introduced that allowed blacks to play their music. This also majorly helped jazz be known throughout the United States. The importance of jazz. Jazz did the following: influenced fashion, dances, accepted moral standards, youth culture, and race relations in society, helped lower racial tensions after the war, affected jazz poetry, fashion, and industry majorly. Major turning points in jazz. Louis Armstrong, who played the trumpet, created the idea of stepping away from the band to perform a solo. This was the guy I mentioned in my title slide. This is still copied by musicians today. Edwards Duke Ellington, conductor and composer, used tons of different sounds and instruments to create songs such as Take a Train. Take a Train inspired tons of jazz artists today. Prohibition during the Jazz Age. Prohibition occurred from 1919 to 1933, and alcohol was considered illegal in the United States. Illegal bars called speakeasies quickly formed and sold alcohol. In order to get in, you would have to say the password and they would let you in. Once in, you got to have drinks and listen to jazz music. Speakeasies often featured jazz music. Summary. Jazz was introduced in the 1920s during the Roaring Twenties. was a popular form of art loved by young Americans. It was often in speakeasies during Prohibition, which helped it become popular. Some artists, like Louis Armstrong, changed how we see jazz today. And they were excited.